Hey Jack,
Hello.
how are you?
Yeah.
I'm doing really well today, man. How are you?
Amazing.
So we're trying a new little format here where we just have two little microphones hooked up to our shirts, and we are currently doing a walk and talk in the northeastern tunnels. So there's,
Absolutely fantastic.
I'm excited. If there's any background noise, I would say I apologize, but I really don't because this is a really nice format, and I really hope this goes well.
Hopefully.
Oh, yeah,
It's
man.
fantastic.
All right, so Jack, today you texted me at 1:32 p.m. Eastern Standard Time
Mm,
on February 28th, 2024. You said, let's philosophize this later. That is something that we do.
now is later.
Do you ever feel like there's a part of you that wants to fail? If so, why do you think that is? So I really like this question. Do you want to go first or would you like me to go first?
You know what? I'd love for you to go first.
Cool. So
Mm,
do you think there's a part of you that wants you to fail? Um, This is a very good question. I think a lot of people ask. I I want to preface this with saying, oftentimes answers aren't derived from an epiphany or an insight, but from asking really good questions. I think this is one of those very good questions. Um, but do I think there's a part of me that wants to fail? I think in a way, yes, because when you are successful, you have the burden of success, right? And what I mean by that is if you succeed, in order to continue that identity or that ego, you have to continue succeed, whatever that looks like. And I think it's very comfortable to fail because if you fail, then you don't have to change,
mm,
right? If you succeed at something, you have a new burden, a new responsibility to bear. And sometimes that responsibility is scary, right? And sometimes parts of me want, not necessarily like desires failure. I don't think there's a part of me that wants to fail, but there might be
Well,
a part of me that's afraid of what success might look like.
I think all of this would naturally happen subconsciously.
Mm, yeah.
That's kind of where I would go at it. Of obviously, consciously, you're not going to want to fail. You're going to want to grow conscious.
Mm,
But there'd be that split part of you under your conscious mind that causes you to enact different actions that lead to your inevitable failure.
yeah. Actually, before we dive further into this, what prompted this question? Was there like something you read, something you saw, or did it just like come from the ether?
Um, it was kind of when I was reflecting on my bad trading habits.
Uh huh.
And one thing that I kind of thought about was the idea of I know what kind of work is required for successful trading.
Yeah.
And when I trade without doing the work, part of me, if it's subconscious or not, knows I didn't put the work in. And so I'm not worthy of receiving success from this.
Yeah.
And I know what I need to do in order to meet my expectations of what succeeding looks like. And if my actions fall short of that, then there's a part of me that doesn't feel I'm worthy yet of receiving that success and all of the gifts and fruits that come with it.
Mm, yeah. Uh, I was thinking about this where if there like sometimes there's a part of you that wants you to fail because if you fail, you could source the blame to some sort of external thing.
Right.
Like it's an avoidance of bearing responsibility on your life.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
I think so.
So maybe the fear of success isn't necessarily like, oh no, I'm a millionaire. This is so sad and scary. But rather it's if you're a millionaire, that also means you could probably become a billionaire, meaning you probably have a lot more or a lot further to go.
Probably.
right? So it's almost like if you get one New York Times bestseller, and even though that's an external thing you can't really control, that means you're the type of person who's capable of a New York Times bestseller,
Right.
right? And it's like it's scary to have to get into a new identity.
Well, let's put it in the beginner's arena of before you've actually hit success, before you've tasted any version of success.
Yeah.
In some sense, the part that's keeping you back is habit. It's
Yeah.
that child within you that is looking for some affirmation of its identity.
Ooh, go into that.
Well, let's say, whether true or not, doesn't matter. Let's say I have this subconscious identity, because nothing of this is conscious. Let's say I have this subconscious identity that that I don't have a good work ethic.
Hmm.
And let's say I also know that what breeds success is a good work ethic times discipline.
Truth.
If I enact different actions or have the lack of actions and discipline that in my conscious and, well, obviously subconscious mind, I see, okay, I am not the type of disciplined person that I know I should become when I reach success. A
Mm.
lot of success isn't about the objectivity of it, it's who you become in the journey and the process of becoming.
The work works on you more than you work on it.
Exactly. And if I don't believe that I am what I expect a successful character would look like, well, then I'm not going to believe that I'm worthy of that success. And until I become that person, I'm going to seek failure because that proves that my paradigm of how I believe a successful person should operate would be true. And I want to affirm that identity
And
of my knowledge structures and of my belief of what success looks like. And so if I don't live the ethos of what I believe a successful character looks like, and then I enact different actions that will either lead to success or failure, my subconscious mind is going to choose the one of failure because it is not the character that lives success.
yeah, I mean, I think this points to the fact that if you don't have the underlying belief that you can succeed, you won't.
Right.
Right? Now, here's a question. This is something I've always struggled with, but I've always thought about, which is like how like there seems to be this sort of loop where you won't succeed until you have the belief that you could succeed, but you won't have the belief you could succeed until you do find a shred of success.
Right.
So
I would say, yeah, that's a big thing that I've, struggled with or contended with as well.
yeah,
Because it's hard because let's say you don't have the knowledge structures that will lead you to success. And so you don't believe that you're capable of it.
makes sense.
But then you also don't really know what you need to learn in order to then get those knowledge structures because, well, you don't have them.
Mhm. So this is on this topic of like knowing what to do, and so I guess on this topic of like ignorance versus action,
Mhm.
um, a certain mental reframe I've like to do is whenever I feel like lost or confused or directionless, like I don't know what the next step to take is, I often take that as a cue to learn.
Right.
Because if you don't know what the next action is, that's ignorance, right?
Mhm.
Now, the cure to ignorance is knowledge. That means you have to acquire more knowledge. And then when you acquire more knowledge, the path will kind of find its way. This is maybe why, for example, a lot of people say, "Oh, if you're lost in life, like go get an MBA, go to grad school."
Right.
And while I don't necessarily agree with that approach wholeheartedly, I would say you don't have to spend $150,000 to figure out what you want to do in life. But I do think there's a kernel of truth in there, which is finding knowledge to figure out what the thing where like what direction you want to pursue, right? So in this sort of paradox of belief and action, would you say that acquiring knowledge allows you to to obtain the clarity, which then might lead to the belief that you're worthy of success, which then leads to the actions of success? Would you say knowledge sort of allows you to overcome that weird stasis of belief and action?
Let's say if the knowledge that you're seeking is intentional. Um, I mean, best I can do is give an example of what I'm trying to do right now.
Yeah.
What I know the next step for me to do before I become a successful trader, or before I have the belief that I'm a successful trader, I need to build a system.
Yeah.
Without a system which acts as your map, or yeah, your map, well, you walk around blind in the markets.
Yeah.
And currently, I don't have a system.
Yeah.
And so every time I trade in the markets, well, because I don't have a system, I don't feel worthy of getting any success because, well, if I have any winning trades without a system, I'm just conditioning myself for bad habits.
You can't attribute it to the system.
Right. I would contribute it to luck.
Yeah.
And the thing is, well, that's bad as well.
Yeah.
And so that also makes it so I don't have the confidence needed to actually believe in myself to succeed.
Yeah.
Confidence is a big part of it as well. So I know the next action I need to take is building a system. The thing is, and this is one of the hard parts as well, is building a system is not easy, obviously, or else everyone would be able to do it.
Very true.
And so I know this is probably a good 6 month task. And it's such a big, frightening task. It's very daunting that I don't really know where to start that's efficient.
Mm,
You know, I could spend a lot of wasted time, which, well, I guess that's something as well.
mm,
So there's this idea of when you have a task that's too daunting because of how big it is, obviously you have to break it up into subtasks until it becomes small enough where you know what you can do right now.
eh,
And then you can start to get those little wins so that you could get closer to that goal.
yeah. This is sort of how I follow. Yeah, no, this isn't sort of. This is how I follow it as well. Which is when I have a big vision or a big dream or a big whatever. It's really easy to get scared and frightened, right? So taking that and breaking it into the components, specifically like the process oriented components, things that are in my control, massively reduces the fear and the headache. And at least for me personally, and this is something that's in my lecture series in part four, which is all oriented towards creating systems and habits, actions, and all that kind of fun stuff. But I like to really measure actions on a daily and a weekly basis. So, for example, if I know that one of my goals is really create a library of wisdom, right? And that looks different for everyone. And my version of a library of wisdom may look different than your version of a library of wisdom or whatever it is. But I know that two things lead to wisdom, and it's experiencing new things and reflecting upon it. So I basically create this sort of daily action system where this big frightening goal of attaining wisdom, which is quite, I don't know, at least for me, the word wisdom is quite a scary word because wisdom is like something that's timeless in a way, right? And like that's something daunting. The way I break that down into something manageable is by saying, okay, all I have to do to attain wisdom is experience life. So, have uncomfortable experiences, try new things, do new things, push my limits, and then, take a few minutes out of my day to write or journal about it or to meditate upon it and to really try to find out and tease the lesson. And I think by taking nouns and making them actions, that is something which has really helped me find calm
Mm.
and find clarity to take this weird smorgasbord of, okay, I need the belief, I need the action, I need this and that, and making it more tangible.
Right. So you talked a lot about reflecting on the things you do and your actions in your day. What does your nightly reflection process look like? Because I just started doing nightly reflection myself, and what it's kind of been looking like is just stream of consciousness for few pages.
Yeah.
Nothing really structured. Nothing that really is expanding my understanding of what I actually did.
Yeah. Okay.
Because there's no guiding questions that's, I guess, bringing me further into the depths of what I actually did.
I see what you mean. I think that's absolutely valid. I love my nightly reflections. I love the sort of process I've created for them. Um, it, I'll detail it real quick. So, my nightly reflections consist of three aspects. One of them is
I guess.
listing out actions that, in my opinion, were either virtuous or vicious. So, this forces me, and I use that terminology just because I love virtue ethics and I'm an Aristotle fanboy. But for me, that looks like, okay, what are the actions I took today that were virtuous? What were the actions that were good? So, for example, maybe I listened really, really well today and I didn't judge other people mid conversation. Or something I did was I wasn't harsh and overly critical towards myself. And instead, I was actually quite kind and, open. But a vicious action, a vice might be actually, I was very harsh and critical, or I wasn't very intentional with the way I entered an interview or whatever it might be. So, by delineating what these virtuous or vicious actions were, I basically conditioned myself, right? Because whenever I do something virtuous and I recognize it, that's positive conditioning. That's Pavlovian positive conditioning. But when I do something vicious, I feel bad about it. I don't like it. There's a negative emotion attached to it. I remember that. I register that, and I make it so it's like negatively conditioning that, right?
Right.
So that works for me, and I've noticed that the more times I list out things I'm trying to improve in myself, things such as being a better listener or being less judgmental towards others, the more I write that down in my nightly journal and condition that behavior, the more that desired behavior becomes the default.
Gotcha.
And it's like NLP, it's subconscious programming, right? And it's really, really cool. And it happens over a long time scale. Like it doesn't happen over the course of a week.
Mhm.
It happens over the course of months.
This continuous action.
Yes. But the more I condition it, the more aware I am of it, and the more I'm able to continuously act upon it, the more that becomes the default. So that's one version of it, or not one version, that's one aspect of my nightly journal. The next part of my nightly journal is simply reflecting on things I'm grateful for. The top three things that always end up on the things I'm grateful for. No, the first three are family, friends, and conversation. Like it's always that. So by listing the things I'm grateful for, basically that's just ensuring I go to sleep happy. Like you can't be angry and grateful at the same time. So that's just awesome. So list out the things I'm grateful for. Two, I list out the things I'm proud of. I would say this is similar to virtuous, like what virtuous actions might look like, but I don't know. Maybe there's a delineation between virtue and pride. I would say there is. Um, For example, I'll say like I was really proud of my writing session today, but I wouldn't put that in virtue. It's like I don't know what that would. I don't know what sort of character trait that would look like. And then three is things I want to continue doing. So oftentimes this is like being intentional, being a really good listener. Um, it's very similar to like what kind of behaviors or ideas do I want to condition in myself, and I just kind of go along there. So I do that, which is I list out things that were virtuous, actions that were vicious. I list out things I'm grateful for. I list out things I'm proud of, and I list out things I want to continue. And that's basically just me assigning negative or positive emotions to the actions I've taken in that day.
I
And that is
guess.
the first half of my nightly journal. And I know that sounds like a lot, but it really doesn't take that long. It takes me like 5 minutes, that aspect.
So are you listing it out or like full sentences, paragraphs,
No,
stories? What do you
I
do?
I'm just listing it out.
Okay,
So it's literally like 2, 3 words max. Like you could see it in my journal,
gotcha.
and when I'll show you in a minute, but just straight up like 2, 3 words.
Okay,
Then the next part of my journal,
I
which is
guess.
on the next page, is basically just a kind of stream of consciousness recollection of the day. What were some of the highlights? What were some of the things I was really proud of? What were some of the ideas or whatever I want to take away from the day? And this sort of stream of consciousness is honestly just having a conversation with myself.
Hmm.
It's it's a very honest and a very vulnerable conversation where, yesterday I basically said, yesterday I don't think I was very
I guess.
intentional with my actions or my day. I was just kind of mindless in my own mind. And I didn't even register the fact that I have an interview next week with one of the best ad agencies. And I got the email yesterday that they want to interview me. And I saw that email and I had no reaction to it. I was just like, cool. Right. But 6 months ago, if I received that email, I would be bouncing off the walls. Right. So that is an example of me just being mindless, me not being present and registering the stimuli that's incoming. So I wrote that down. I said, hey, Armand, you got to realize that like it's pretty fucking awesome. Like, pat yourself on the back, right? So that is sort of what I do in my second phase of journaling, which is just stream of consciousness. So I know we spent the last like 10 minutes going on like one journaling exercise, but
So then,
I'm really passionate about it. So
so then, I guess before we finish off, let's bring it back to the original question of, how can that nightly journal and that reflection process help combat that part of you that is seeking your own failure?
yeah,
It's the devil within.
I think the devil within is sometimes scared of what a successful Armand might look like, because I don't think I'm capable of maintaining or improving that success. So that nightly journaling shows me, well, number one, it shows me that I am capable of it and I am worthy of it because it shows me the actions that have gotten me closer. And number two, it almost allows me to feel the success before it's happened. We talk about this a lot, especially in relation to Joe Dispenza and all of the great work that he's done.
I guess.
But there's a real beauty to feeling the positive emotions of the goals that you seek before they've even happened, right? So it allows me to feel that. It allows me to really sink into that feeling
I guess.
and thereby, I guess, instilling that belief.
Amazing.
Say, is there
Should we
anything?
end it there?
Is there anything you want to add in?
Um, no, I think we covered pretty much all I wanted to cover.
All right. I want to say thank you, Jack, for joining me on this walk and talk.
Anytime.
Is there anywhere you would like the listeners to check you out at?
No, I'll be around on the figuring it out podcast here and there.
Jackroth06 on Instagram.
I think we're just back right on Instagram.
Jackroth on Instagram.
Valid.
There it is. Thank you. Goodbye. Take care, y'all. Have a great day. Peace.